Dana came out. He was talking about Ferguson and Gaethje, and he said this will be the most violent fight you've ever seen. That much I can guarantee you. That's an interesting word. That's a very interesting word to use. Violent. It paints a picture, and we all know exactly what it means, but it's a very rare word to use, and it made me start thinking, what is the most violent fight I've ever seen? And this is just a personal opinion, right? I would love to hear what your guys' opinion are too. But one of my favorite marketing ploys ever, and I love the BMF. I might even put this marketing in front of the BMF. Eddie Alvarez was going to fight Justin Gaethje, and Eddie came out and said, this is for the title, most violent man in the UFC. And one of the reasons I love that from a marketing standpoint, it was like 9 or 10 days before the fight when I found out that Eddie had made that up. I thought that Eddie had done such a good job with identifying this fight as being for the most violent man title, that I thought that came from The Office. I thought that was like just like the BMF. I thought this was officially for the title of most violent man. And then I found out that no, Eddie had just started putting that out in interviews. I'm like, man, that was great. That was great. But I have to tell you, in addition to the marketing, that is the fight that I believe is the most violent fight. I'm disclosing the marketing as I tell you this because perhaps the marketing won me over. Perhaps it was just a really awesome fight and a very violent fight, but not the most violent fight. Perhaps that is the case. I can remember one night, Randy Couture fought Pedro Hizzo. And see, violent's an interesting word. How are we defining violent? How do we define damage? How do we do those things? Randy Couture fought Pedro Hizzo, and Pedro was using leg kicks. Pedro was trained by Marco Huaz, and they were using these leg kicks. All the boxing was just to test range. Boom, and he'd come in with these leg kicks. And Randy's leg was so discolored, and he even had to change stances and fight in a southpaw stance just to hide that leg, but Randy wouldn't quit. He wouldn't fall down or go away. But leg kicks are one of those things. It's very hard. It's just not as obvious. It's not as obvious as a swollen eye or a bloody nose or a knockout punch. It's a slower burn. I remember the night I was there live, Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber, and it was the same thing. Aldo just kept landing these leg kicks, and Faber was standing. Faber went back down. He couldn't quite get to his wrestling. Now all of a sudden his legs are slow because he's got this dead leg. I mean, the ultimate Charlie horse. Over the course of 5 rounds, and Faber couldn't get to his tape, and Jose's chopping him down and chopping him down. I see Faber in the back, big smile on his face, saying hello. You know, I don't know what to say to him, and the reason it's an awkward spot for me is he's on a gurney. They're just taking him out the back. The ambulance door is there. It's open. He's about to get in and have to go to the hospital, but it was because of those leg kicks. I have to think that qualifies as violent. I mean, I would have to think where a guy is beaten so bad in the legs that he has to go seek medical attention. That has to qualify as violent. I want your guys' opinion on this. I'm going to stick with my initial pick. I'm sticking with Justin Gaethje versus Eddie Alvarez. Most violent fight of all time. Most violent man in MMA, Eddie Alvarez. I have to admit, though, some of that was because the buildup. I also believe George Masvidal is the baddest MF. Some of that is because I watched them put a belt around him that said he's the baddest MF. So you guys tell me, what's the most violent fight you've ever seen?